Okay, so before we get into this, I need to just preface this video by saying that I've only ever seen Infinity War once at the time of this video. I'm not really into the comics, but I have seen all the movies. And I'm not the type of person to go into a movie looking for mistakes. I like absorbing myself into the whole experience of it. And I don't really think about that stuff until afterwards. But there are some stuff that I noticed during my time watching the movie. Now, it's very difficult to talk about this movie without going into spoilers, but before we start talking about spoilers, I will say that if you have not seen it, go see it. You just have to. Even if you didn't see all the Marvel movies, just go ahead. It is an experience like no other, and what the directors did in this movie is just inhuman. Like, these guys are aliens. There's no way that actual people made this movie. It is so grand in scale. It's unimaginable, unfathomable how they made this film. So with that said, let's start getting into it. I'm going to start with the stuff that I really love, so that way no one thinks that I actually hate this film. I think at the beginning, with Thanos fighting with Hulk, really is good for establishing his physical strength, that they just can't necessarily punch their way out of this problem. So that, and he just has this presence that whenever he's in the room or on screen, you are genuinely afraid of this guy. And that's something that a lot of Marvel villains haven't really had. There are some really wonderful shots here. I really love the shot in New York with Iron Man and Doctor Strange, where Iron Man, you know, they start hearing the noises outside, and he steps outside and he's just walking down the sidewalk, and all the people are running, and a woman falls and he picks her up. Like, that was just a great shot. I really like how the Marvel movies just don't forget why the heroes are heroes. Like, they never forget the little people, you know? And just the way that all the characters were balanced here, the way they interact with each other, I mean, it's indescribable. It's just so fluid. It's so nice. And the final battle of the film is just bigger than Lord of the Rings. Like, it was so large, and so many things happening, and everyone got to shine. It was just so cool. So from a visual standpoint, this movie goes above and beyond, just unlike anything else. Okay, I'm gonna start going into some nitpicky stuff, and it can be debated. It doesn't really break the movie, but some of them can. But just understand, this is my opinion. I'm not speaking for anyone else except myself. I do feel that there are many convenient moments that Thanos doesn't kill anyone. I mean, let's talk about the stones for a sec. The Infinity Stones, what they can do is kind of vague. They do give some shorthanded explanations on which one does what, but because it's vague, you end up getting this really big imagination on what they can do, and then they don't do it in the movie. That's the problem with, like, really powerful stuff in movies. Anytime there's something in a movie that's so utterly powerful you can't imagine it, we start imagining it, but it never really does the thing you imagine. It's always a little bit shortcutted in that way. So I kind of felt like the stones were kind of like that. I was like, why don't he just use the stones for this? Why don't he use the stone for that? I feel like there was a lack of usage of it. But I mean, at the same time, maybe they couldn't do the things I was thinking about, and therefore the rules should have been a little bit more clear. But I understand you can't spend a lot of time explaining this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to tackle in this movie. They don't have time to give us a huge book of rules on what the stones can and cannot do. I get it. But it's just a little bit nitpicky because it made us feel like, or at least for me, it made me feel that there are some moments that Thanos could have killed off an Avenger or something, and he didn't. There is an argument to be made. I heard someone say that he's not really looking to kill people. He's really just looking to balance people out. And that's a fairly valid argument, but I mean, before he had the stones, he was doing this whole balancing on his own without the stones. Therefore, he did choose to kill people to some degree. Another nitpicky thing was that I thought it was established in Thor Ragnarok that Thor's powers were not in his hammer. Now it feels like there's a bit of backward stepping here. Now that there's a whole sequence of him getting this axe made. He needs this axe to defeat Thanos. So it confused me a little bit. As well as the eye patch thing. I'm sure it helped Chris Hemsworth out a lot to be able to use both of his eyes in this movie with all the action and everything. But with Thor Ragnarok, it took such a bold move by destroying the hammer, by getting rid of one of Thor's eyes. Like, these are permanent changes. I mean, also spoilers for Winter Soldier and Civil War. I mean, you talk about the Russo brothers destroyed S.H.I.E.L.D. Even Thor Ragnarok's director took a bold move by making those changes to Thor about his hammer and his eye. So I think it's reasonable to assume that the Russo brothers would do something bold and permanent in Infinity War. I mean, this is the movie we've been waiting for years. This is what it is all coming to. I mean, something big is going to happen, something big and permanent, right? But there's a lot of things that happened that I feel were just not permanent. And I'll get to that a little bit later. And I guess the argument can be made that, oh, the big company, Disney, doesn't want really bold moves to be made. But you can't really say that. This is the company that greenlit The Last Jedi, the boldest Star Wars movie ever, and Star Wars is arguably a more popular and beloved franchise than the MCU at this time. And The Last Jedi really divided fans, so Disney's no stranger to some degree of boldness. So it's still, I consider it still another nitpick that they kind of backtracked on the progress that Thor Ragnarok did. So I feel like there are many moments that were predictable in this movie, like Gamora's death. You know, she's trying to sell it to us and to Thanos himself that, oh, he's stopped here because he never loved anyone. Like, come on, like, all right, it's normal to predict things in movies, but the director kind of typically director kind of knows that, so they don't spend so much time on it. It's like a good minute that she's giving this speech about how Thanos doesn't love anyone and there's no way he's getting the stone. And we're all like, yeah, we know he secretly loves her. Just go ahead and finish the scene. Again, it was more of a nitpicky thing. I have much bigger issues than this stuff, but let's finish it out. I feel like while there was great character chemistry among everyone, I feel like no one had an actual arc other than Thanos, which he didn't really have an arc either. I guess could be an argument for Peter Quill because of what he went through with Gamora, and that's another thing. But I just feel like there was no real arcs here. I'll still count that as a nitpick thing just because this is a different type of movie. It's following a different set of rules, so I'll kind of let that slide. My next issue is, why does Vision suck? Why is he like made the damsel in distress in this movie? Like, you're talking about a guy who has an Infinity Stone in his head. He spends so much time in these movies meditating on understanding this stone, and the best he could do is shoot a laser sometimes. I just feel like just some decisions were made with some of these characters just for convenience sake, such as Hulk conveniently not wanting to come out to fight. Because we all know, even though he lost to Thanos, we all know that if he truly was in that Wakanda battle, he would have messed stuff up. Like, they wouldn't even need Thor to show up. Thor, you go ahead and deal with Thanos by yourself. We got these aliens. That's fine. And yeah, an argument could be made that the Hulk Buster suit that Iron Man made is the only thing that really beat Hulk. But it didn't feel impactful, honestly. It did not feel impactful in Infinity War. Here's one of the biggest issues I have is that Peter Quill ruins Doctor Strange's plan. Even though I feel that Doctor Strange's plan is still in play for the next movie, I feel like there was no difference between Quill just waiting another minute for them to yank off the Infinity Gauntlet, and then he can punch him. You know, I feel like that was just a really poor way of saying, like, hey guys, Thanos can't lose the glove right now, so what are we gonna do here? I mean, he's got trapped by Spider-Man webs and Doctor Strange spell, and Mantis is on his head. Like, he's not getting out of this, and they're about to take the glove off. What is the one thing we can do here to just screw this all up? I guess we can get Peter Quill really mad about Gamora's death and just start punching Thanos, just kind of snap him back into reality or something. That was their best idea. I even heard an alternative. I think it was Chris Stuckman's review, where they mentioned, like, it would have been better if Drax did that, because Drax would do that. This is so out of character for Peter Quill, and I'm not saying characters should never act out of character, but it was just very, very dumb to do that. I mean, you could literally see them. They got the glove halfway off. They're almost there. He just needed to wait like another 30 seconds and then start punching Thanos. So I have a great problem with that. So that's all the nitpicky stuff, right? Now I want to get into the deeper stuff. These are the real issues I have with the movie. Spoilers for Winter Soldier and Civil War. In both Winter Soldier and Civil War, they ask a very good question for us to ask ourselves. I mean, those are the best movies, right? The ones you go into a movie knowing who you are, what your beliefs are, your morals, what you have faith in, your ideas of right and wrong. Like, you go into these movies with all that on your shoulders, and then you leave the movie where it buckled your very foundation. Those are like the ones that stay with you, right? I mean, how is Dark Knight considered the greatest superhero movie of all time? Not just because it was Batman and Joker punching each other, is because they actually had a philosophical debate. And the Russo brothers did that in both Winter Soldier and Civil War. In Winter Soldier, the question was, which is more important to you, security or freedom? Because the more security we gain in our country, the less privacy we have. So, and if you want freedom, you're going to have to sacrifice some of that security. Like, that was the idea. They present this really big question and they let it hang, and they let it hang out there to just let you ponder it and think about it and choose for yourself, like, which is more important to you. But it's still a superhero movie. It's still about bad guys and good guys. So by the end of the movie, they make the decision for you. So, and then it becomes obvious, like, oh yeah, like, freedom's more important. Yeah, the bad guy's idea of security is to such an extreme that they're willing to terminate people before they even commit a crime just based on their digital record. In Civil War, they asked the question, well, the Avengers are there to protect the people. Shouldn't the people have a say in what the Avengers do? And the other side is, well, the Avengers work outside of all those rules for the benefit of the people. And there's a great debate. Like, just check out this scene from Civil War.
He put a few miles on his soul before he parked it behind a desk, see the world, maybe be of service. Charlie didn't want to go to Vegas or Fort Lauderdale, which is what I would do. He didn't go to Paris or Amsterdam, which sounds fun. He decided to spend his summer building sustainable housing for the poor, guess where? Sokovia. He wanted to make a difference, I suppose. I mean, we won't know because we dropped the building on him while we were kicking ass.
Tony, if someone dies on your watch, you don't give up.
Who said we're giving up?
We are for not taking responsibility for our actions. This document just shifts the blame.
I'm sorry, Steve, that is dangerously arrogant. This is the United Nations we're talking about. It's not the World Security Council. It's not SHIELD. It's not Hydra.
No, but it's run by people with agendas, and agendas change.
That's good. That's why I'm here. When I realized what my weapons were capable of in the wrong hands, I shut it down, stopped manufacturing.
Tony, you chose to do that. If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose.
Like, this scene is so great in the way they discuss it, and I just couldn't pick a side. Both arguments were so good, but again, they did it again. By the end of the movie, they basically make the decision for you, and like, yeah, the Accords are bad, and the Accords just cripple the Avengers. So the Accords are bad, that's the end of it. But at least they let it hang out there in the movie for a while before they resolve it. So I have a theory that, like, Infinity War's theme is death. I heard something about it's really about, like, one life versus many lives, and there's this debate between the side, like Thanos' side and the Avengers side, on just the different philosophies of that, but I just felt it was very light. So assuming that the theme is death or obliteration, genocide, you know, that kind of thing, I thought this was a very missed opportunity to explore that. Like, where's the big question? Like, in our culture, in American culture, and other cultures as well, death is finite. Like, death is the final step. We don't know what's after this. There's probably nothing after this. There probably is, depends on the individual. But it's all treated with tragedy. Like, that's just the way we view it. That's our culture. There are other cultures where death is actually celebrated. You know, that's not our culture. This could have been a great opportunity to make us question, or at least Thanos could make the argument, like, actually, death is pretty awesome. On the other side, people are not suffering. They have more freedom. There's no discrimination. Well, like, whatever argument he wanted to make, that, hey, we think death is like the end, but it's actually the beginning. Life is suffering. Life is not what it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be experiencing life. You're supposed to be experiencing death. Like, just make some argument that's profound and makes us think. And then by the end of the movie, resolve and be like, oh yeah, death is bad. One person doesn't have the right to decide on, you know, half the people in the universe lives and the other half dies, even if it is at random. Like, one person shouldn't have the power to do that. So, like, just let some kind of philosophical question out there. Thanos versus Avengers, like, just have some kind of philosophical thing going on. And they did try it. Thanos was trying to explain that he's trying to bring balance to the universe. His homeworld suffered because they didn't listen to him. And on Gamora's world, he eliminated half the population. She was starving and poor, but ever since he killed half the people, the planet's doing great. I feel like this is a very weak argument, and I don't think it really makes people go like, oh yeah, he's making a lot of sense here, because Because what, Thanos is the first guy to think that killing a bunch of people actually helps in the long term? So I was just very disappointed because it's the Russo brothers. They're really good at that kind of stuff, and I just thought there was going to be some kind of philosophical debate. I mean, this movie we've been waiting for years. We've been waiting for Thanos. And at the end of the day, it's a really great visual spectacle. It's a really great action movie. But I didn't leave it thinking like, wow, I never thought about my life in such a way. You know, it was more like, wow, I wonder what's going to happen in the next one now that everyone's dead. Which I'm pretty frustrated with the ending as well. Not saying I wanted the movie to be 4 hours or something, but it does feel pretty cheap. Even though it sort of wraps up the story, it kind of doesn't because the bad guy wins. I was fully expecting 1 or 2 Avengers to be killed off and feeling like it's permanent. Now, this may be due to my view being tainted because I read about domestic gross and however much money the movies make and whatnot. So I know Black Panther is the 3rd highest grossing film in the US in history. You mean to tell me that there's not going to be another Black Panther? And some people say, oh, it's going to be a prequel. You mean to tell me there's going to be a prequel of Black Panther before all these events? And what about Spider-Man? They already decided not to do another origin Spider-Man. And Doctor Strange, like the first movie, was his origins. So a sequel could not be a prequel. So it didn't have weight to me because it felt very fake. That's the whole thing with this movie. A lot of this stuff feels temporary. None of it felt permanent. So I didn't get as emotional as I was hoping to get with a more permanent change. Whatever it was, whether it was losing a character or which most likely would have been that way anyways, but I just didn't feel like anything was really permanent. I still don't feel like that. Now the next Infinity War will probably ratify all these criticisms. It might do some really wacky stuff, and maybe some deaths will be permanent. Maybe all will be permanent, which I highly, highly, highly doubt. If you wanted me to believe that it was permanent, then get rid of Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, since they've been in the game the longest out of all of them. Don't get rid of all the new guys and expect us to believe that they're really gone. But it is kind of weird how the original Avengers are still alive and not any of the new guys. So I did notice that. I'm not the only one that noticed that, but yeah, that is very interesting. I don't know what they're doing there. So that is my criticisms of Infinity War. Again, I only seen the movie once. While the second viewing may or may not soften these criticisms, I doubt they will outright change my feelings about it. I still love the movie. I still think it's a great spectacle, but I just thought it was going to do more. I really thought it was going to bring more to the table in terms of having a deep, like making us have a deep discussion about it, rather than saying like, oh, are they going to bring them back to life in the next movie? I would really have liked to have a true deep conversation about life, about culture, the nature of reality, whatever it is, just some deep conversation about this stuff. And it was no question posed that I feel we can talk about after the movie's done. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Infinity War? Did you love it? Did you have criticisms? Were they similar to mine? Did you have different ones? Let me know. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to share, like, and subscribe to the channel. My name is Chit, and I approve this message.